So in this video, I'm going to share with you what I think is the solution and the resolution to quite a lot of, if not maybe even the majority of, mental overwhelm, stress, imbalance, and many other types of conditions. And regardless of what those things might be and how they manifest, I think in reality they have similar causes and thus can be solved by basically kind of the same thing. And what I'm going to suggest might be so aggressively simple and basic and almost stupid that at first glance it might not even seem relevant or appropriate or effective. But I can tell you from my own personal experience that it is actually quite effective, quite useful, and might actually be one of the only solutions to many of these things. And for myself, I struggle with a lot of the things that I'll talk about in this video, like stress and overwhelm and anxiety and depression and feeling lost and hopeless, and all those things I'm very familiar with and lived a great chunk of my life in those states. And I know a lot of people have felt the same and currently do feel the same as well, and it's a big problem, and it's even an even more growing problem. So basically, the first point to understand is that if we're in those kind of states, which we might say or feel are negative, adding more complexity onto that is not likely to be helpful or useful, and actually oftentimes just makes things worse. Why I say that is because for example, you could have these things going on, then you go on the internet, you start reading things, and then you start reading 12 to 100 different reasons and examples and ideas for why they're occurring, and this person's got the miracle cure, and this person's figured this out, and this person's got this course, and they've got this therapy, and there's all these supplements you can try, and all these modalities you can try, and all these things, and it just becomes this whole big scenario. And another example is you could maybe go to therapy, right? You could start talking to someone. And maybe if they're doing DBT or CBT or something that's a little more pragmatic and direct, sure, it can be useful. And maybe if you're really in the dark for what's going on, then talking about it from someone could be very useful. But what I found is very often the case is that kind of scenario can often make things worse because your identity gets more wrapped up in that process of being ill or being diseased, meaning having a lack of ease and comfort. And basically, then you start going off in all these different directions and finding all of these reasons for why this thing is occurring. And then you just kind of get all this evidence for why you feel a certain way, but that doesn't necessarily actually resolve or solve anything. It just perhaps could make you more of an expert in why you don't feel the way that you want to feel. And that's something that I've seen to be personally true many times within mainstream medicine, where they're really good at identifying a problem and putting a name on it, but they're not necessarily good at identifying why that thing is occurring. What is it manifesting in response to? What situation or stimulus is it adapting to that causes it to exist in the first place? And then how to actually resolve it. Those things are very often not even in the conversation. It's just, oh, I have this thing. Oh, cool, we can put a label on that. And then somehow people are like, oh, wow, that's progress. That's a very profound step I've just taken in my life. And of course, it can be in certain scenarios, of course, putting a label on something. But that's not it's kind of like if someone has you in an arm lock, right? And you're like, oh, like my shoulder's gonna break. Would you rather know why you're in that arm lock, or would you rather be out of that arm lock? I think most people, sane people, would rather be out of it and move on with their life rather than spend 20 years analyzing why they're wound up in that lock. And that's something I've seen after being in this industry for so long, is so many people stay in the arm lock, get experts in at it, adapt to it, and then think they're not in it, but they are still in it. And then it's still just not really solving or resolving anything. So that's why I say really the first idea is realizing that adding more complexity onto a scenario that's already discomfort or uncomfortable is not really that helpful most of the time. So obviously the solution to that would be simplifying, eliminating, reducing. Basically, something as simple as organization can be very useful. Actually getting organized in our thoughts, getting organized in our life, because usually if our thoughts and our mind are very scattered, various aspects of our life are going to be very scattered as well, and are probably going to be very disorderly, and probably themselves going to be kind of overcomplicated, and all of this leading to the realization that we are really lacking clarity, meaning what we're doing and why we're actually doing it, and then how that relates to the results and the experiences that we're having. Understanding those things can very often be quite useful, and can actually be the most useful thing that we can do to at least minimize and start reducing whatever it is that we might be dealing with. The other thing to understand is that regardless whether it's stress, anxiety, depression, worry, feeling sad, or whatever emotional fluctuation or mental stressor that we're talking about, in the simplest sense, it basically is just implying that we are not comfortable within ourselves. We're not feeling at ease. And it's basically kind of that simple. And why I say that is because very often if we're dealing with these things, it gets so complicated, because you're like, well, why am I feeling this way? And why me? And why is it this? And how can I get rid of this thing? But then this thing that we're wanting to get rid of, we don't really even necessarily understand. It's kind of ephemeral. It kind of feels like this otherworldly, kind of transcendental, evil thing that we have to somehow get rid of. But that's not really a useful or practical way or productive way of looking at it. So in the most simplest way, it's like, how many different flavors of discomfort are there? Probably a lot, but they're all still discomfort. So what is the solution to discomfort? Feeling more comfortable, feeling more at ease, feeling more organized, feeling more structured. Because the thing is when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel all of these things, is usually because we're lacking clarity, we're lacking purpose, we're lacking meaning, or we're lacking basically like a clear understanding of what's happening and why, which is often what triggers all of these other things. So that's why I'm saying if we can actually start to simplify, reduce, minimize, get organized, get structured, that can actually start to take care of and resolve a lot of things. And that actually, if we start asking, or if we start realizing, oh, I'm just feeling like uncomfortable and not at ease within myself, that is a much simpler way of getting into, oh, well, I'm depressed, but I'm depressed because I had PTSD, but then I had PTSD because I had this event, but then this event occurred, but then this other event occurred, but this other event occurred, but then it might be a variation of this other thing. But then I don't know, I might end another diagnosis, another treatment, another it just can like get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have this massive mental weight that you're carrying, which is again, more stress, more anxiety, more tension, and that means less energy that you have available to yourself, which is why I'm saying simplify, reduce, get clarity, and take things back to a more simple, easy, almost like stupid level of functioning, because that's actually oftentimes more effective. So starting to realize like, okay, I feel uncomfortable, I feel not at ease. How can I feel more comfortable? How can I feel at ease? Under what circumstances do I feel those ways? What things bring those sensations on within me? And then basically start to cultivate that side of how we feel or how we relate or how we look at things, rather than just feeding more of what is already causing us to feel terrible. Because it's a kind of a misunderstanding and a big disservice that I think a lot of people have in the therapy industry, the health industry, and whatever. They think if I just go deep into my depression and really just figure it all out and analyze it all, then that will somehow get rid of it. Typically what happens is you just get better at feeling shitty or you end up lying to yourself. You're like a smiling depressive of like, I see this online all the time, because I can hear it in people's voices, I can see it in their mannerisms, I can see it in their body that they're still like really quite depressed, really quite emotionally wound up. It's like in their eyes, like, hi, I'm practicing my mindfulness today because I'm so peaceful and I'm so spiritual now and I just feel so grateful for all of the life's learning experiences that I've had over this beautiful cosmic ride that I've had as a human being, being a spiritual experience. And it's just like, I can see it just bubbling and buzzing in their nervous system. And it's like, they're not really comfortable. They haven't actually resolved or sorted anything out other than just, well, I've invested 20 years or 15 years or 5 years or $20,000 into this thing. So rather than admitting to myself that I haven't accomplished anything, it's easier to lie and say, oh, well, now I have done this thing because now I'm on this whole other thing. And that's not a jab or a dig on anyone. It's just human nature. It's things that we all deal with. It's the world that we live in. You know, we're all products of our environment, and we only have the resources that we have available to us. So I mean, I totally get it. I'm not putting anyone down or whatever. I'm just hopefully trying to shed some light on something, and hopefully a little bit of clarity, and share things that have really worked for me and really been helpful and useful, and also just things that make sense and are really simple and really easy. Because it's like, more overwhelm usually produces more overwhelm. More anxiety produces more anxiety. More worry produces more worry. That's just, our body is just a feedback loop. All right, it's like if you just get better at doing whatever it is that you're doing. So if it's going to therapy and talking about how sad and emotionally volatile you are, then you're just going to get better at being emotionally volatile. And they're going to give you more reasons that you're emotionally volatile, and give you more adaptive strategies and coping mechanisms and acceptance and excuses for being that thing. And that's just going to be more of what you're going to keep doing. And that's based on what I've seen time and time again in this niche, in this industry, over the last 15 years that I've been in it. And the only things that I've ever seen that actually work and produce any type of change or result is the things that I've just outlined and discussed in this video. So hopefully it's helpful, hopefully it's useful. But in actuality, I think the vast majority of people aren't even making it this far, because when I look at the YouTube analytics, the actual watch time for the video is like, so I'm just like, okay, it's probably just me talking to myself at this point in the video, but whatever. What I said in the video is helpful for me. It's been helpful for me, and it probably will continue to be helpful for me, because I would like to feel more comfortable at ease in my life, because that just seems a little more pleasant. I like to have more simplicity, more clarity, and understanding what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what I'm saying, and what I actually mean, and why I actually mean that, and what I'm trying to get across. To me, that all seems useful. So hopefully it's been helpful, and like, subscribe, comment, whatever, all the YouTube things that people say, and I'll talk to you soon.